I apologize for being late, everybody. My dog is sick, so it's not what I was expecting when I got home from work. Okay, so the title of this is Harry Potter and the Cult of Celebrity. This is a thing I thought of earlier this summer, and I'm only just starting to work my way through it. Eventually, I would like to expand it beyond what I'm going to be able to share with you tonight, but we'll see what I have, and you can tell me if it's interesting or boring or what. But I thought we'd start with a quote from Harry's alter ego, actor Daniel Radcliffe, who, as we all know, played him. At the age of 22 in November 2011, he gave an interview to The Hollywood Reporter, and he had this quote: "There are obviously upsides to it, but I'd say that the upsides for me are the upsides that come from my job rather than from the celebrity aspect. I mean, celebrity is horrible. That's the truth, is that it's a ghastly, vile thing." I'm just going to leave that up there for a while. Different social researchers have defined celebrity culture differently, but all agree on a couple of things. First, if we can use the word in the definition, which I always tell my students not to, but first, that celebrity culture is, quote, a culture in which fame is central. Olivier Driessens in 2014 in the journal Communication wrote, quote, "What is typical about modern celebrity culture is its pervasiveness and its integration in our everyday lives," end quote. This pervasiveness is largely media-driven, and you know that I'm interested in the media. So, Driessens went on, quote, "The values in celebrity culture center around publicity, the urge to be visible and promoted. Celebrities are not only an effect of high visibility and their recurrent circulation in the media, several of them are also intentionally constructed and manufactured as an audience-gathering mechanism." And if you need to think about that, think about reality TV stars and how we don't really know much about them beyond what they construct for themselves in the scope of whatever show they happen to be on. So while you're thinking of those, think of some recent celebrities who seem to be intentionally constructed by the celebrities themselves and by our media culture. And I'm going to show how out of touch I am by the ones that I will name, because I'm sure they're way older than the ones the young people in the room today. All of the Kardashians. Do we know anything about them beyond what they have presented to us in their TV show? Paris Hilton, Nicole Richie, who were among the first to do a sort of a scripted reality show. Nick Lachey and his ex-wife Jessica Simpson. Okay, people who are known more for playing themselves than for any role that they get as an actor or an actress, or any success they have as a musician, etc. So they seek the spotlight more than anything else. Can you guys think of anybody else like that, especially if you've got younger people than my aged examples? I mean, we have the ultimate in the White House right now. Reality TV star turned president, and that's all I'll say. I won't get political. But think about how he constructed his persona and how he has carried that then to great heights. Paul Hollander, writing in the September 2010 issue of the journal Society, listed celebrities as being drawn from many different occupations: supermodels, actresses, actors, athletes, TV hosts, TV newscasters, socialites, rich upper middle class people. He's a little bit sexist because he said occasionally a politician or his wife, as though the wife could never be the politician. And then, of course, actors, actresses, and musicians. Hollander says, quote, "The celebrity phenomenon is historically new and closely tied to modernity. There always used to be famous, widely respected, or admired people, but celebrities are something new and different. Their numbers are huge and fluctuate, and their fame is transient. Most importantly, unlike famous people of the past, they achieve their acclaim in different ways and for different reasons." And way back in the 1960s, Daniel Boorstin wrote and pointed out that anybody could become a celebrity in America if he could just figure out a way to make himself well enough known. Didn't matter if you had talent, didn't matter if you were actually contributing something to society. If you could get your spotlight, then you could become well known in our celebrity culture.
I've got a good one on that example.
Okay.
Half an onion in a plastic bag.
Okay.
I don't know how many Twitter followers it's got now, do you know off the top of your head? Half an onion in a plastic bag.
Okay, I'll have to check that one out. But that is what we're living in these days, this age where YouTube people can just become stars simply because they make videos and post them on YouTube. I don't know how many makeup artists my daughter follows, and all they do is demonstrate different techniques, but she loves them, and she can quote them, and she names them, and she knows all about them. Okay, whatever. Hollander notes that in modern times, quote, people can become well-known without being heroic, without displaying human attributes which used to be widely admired or respected. Courage, dignity, generosity, intelligence, inventiveness, unselfishness. Today it is possible to become a celebrity without any substantial or genuine accomplishment, which in the past was the foundation of the fame of statesmen, artists, scientists, explorers, musicians, or composers. Moral qualifications in particular are unimportant and irrelevant. It is being well known that matters, not moral character, end quote. Keeping those characters in mind, can you think of anyone in the wizarding world who would display those kinds of characteristics, either on the good side, selflessness, those kinds of things, or then on the bad side, selfishness and lack of moral character? I know we got that. Are there any who sought fame and welcomed it when it came to them, as opposed to people who did not welcome fame, who just simply bore it when it came to find them? And I'm sure you can think of some. J.K. Rowling has plenty to say about fame, even when she's not addressing it explicitly. And she does address it frequently, as you can see from the many tabs in my books. That I only brought 4 of them tonight. Every tab is some mention of fame or something along the lines that draws attention to people. And so there are a ton of them. So I've got Sorcerer's Stone, Chamber of Secrets, Order of the Phoenix, and Deathly Hallows here tonight. We're going to pull some things from those. Is there a difference between fame and celebrity? Does a hippogriff blank in the woods? All right. Does a hippogriff live in the woods? Live is a 4-letter word too. I'm not being rude tonight. So, is there a difference between fame and celebrity? Murray Milner Jr., again writing in Society, they did a special section on celebrity in 2010, said there is no difference, according to dictionary definitions, between famous and celebrity, between fame and celebrity. It's pretty much the same thing, using interchangeable words. But Milner would delineate them thus. Famous people, he says, are people who have distinguished themselves in politics, literature, religion, the arts, and other such areas. Celebrities, on the other hand, are well-known entertainers and sports stars, but also people famous merely for being famous. And again, think of your favorite, if you watch them, reality TV star. Even with that division, though, that he imposes on this definition, there is overlap. Could a playwright known to be a party animal be both a famous person for his playwright skills, but also be a celebrity for his party efforts? Could an actress known to use her fame to draw attention to children's issues worldwide be a celebrity in her acting career, but then be famous when she puts that celebrity to good use, where she's trying to do something noble, selfless? Think of those good characteristics again. Paul Hollander would say yes. He writes, quote, "To be famous and to be a celebrity are not the same, although there is an overlap. We may define a celebrity as the person who is famous or well known for dubious reasons, or for no good reasons at all, and who often achieves such renown by his or her own strenuous efforts. A talented actor may become a celebrity, but so can one without talent, except for the talent of self-promotion. By contrast, many highly talented and creative individuals are not celebrities. Great scientists, most great writers, most musicians playing classical music are not celebrities, but those playing popular music very often are." Again, I think he's a bit of a snob here. And also, I think it's interesting that maybe when he was writing, it predates Twitter, because we all know these days a lot of writers, a lot of musicians take to social media to comment on various things, whether it's about music, whether it's about art, whether it's their field of acting or whatever. Hollander, to me, seems to be dividing the world not into categories of famous and celebrity, but into categories of famous and infamous. All of the bad qualities are on the part of the people who seek fame, and all of the good qualities are on the people who become famous through their merits, not because they're simply going out seeking to become famous. But think about this. Is there a difference between J.K. Rowling and Kim Kardashian? Speaking of writers who are active on social media, she has an avid following and comments quite frequently, not just on literary things, but on political events of the day. Is there a difference between Albus Dumbledore and Gilderoy Lockhart? I'd argue that Dumbledore is famous, according to Hollander's definition, and Lockhart, of course, is infamous, according to that. Rowling very definitely writes to zone in on the idea that some people are famous because their actions merit that fame. These would be the people who would make Milner's list of famous people. And who could we put on that list? Obviously Dumbledore, who is famous, but is famous because he's done great things. Harry has to be on there because of his selflessness and his always putting other people before himself. Viktor Krum, famous Quidditch player, and the only time he mentions his fame is at Bill and Fleur's wedding when he is bemoaning the fact that he's a world famous Quidditch player and he still can't get the pretty girls. That's the only time he ever plays up the fact that he is famous. And I'm sure you can think of others. Rowling also writes to signal that some people who seek celebrity do not deserve that. And who could we put on that list? Dolores Umbridge, who gets lots of attention in the Daily Prophet as she pushes through educational decree after educational decree after educational decree. And she maybe doesn't go out and seek the news coverage. She's just doing things that warrant news coverage, but she certainly doesn't shy away from it, and is quite happy when Percy Weasley helps out in the publicity department. Rita Skeeter, we all know, my favorite journalist in the wizarding world, who promotes herself even when she is promoting the work that she does, where she says, me, myself, and I want to know, and she plays up her persona as part of what she's doing. And think about when she was publishing Dumbledore's biography so soon after his death, and she arranges that little interview with the reporter, and it's all about Rita and the kinds of things she did to get the stories on Dumbledore. It's not about, Dumbledore. She's very definitely building up her own persona. And then, of course, there's this guy. Fame's a fickle friend, Harry. Celebrity is as celebrity does. Remember that. These two quotes, of course, come when Harry is being forced to serve his detention with Lockhart, and Lockhart sets him to addressing envelopes so he can send signed photographs to his fans. I wonder what my students would do if I tried to make them do something like that for detention. Is there a difference between Harry Potter and Gilderoy Lockhart? I'd say only the difference between honest fame and dishonest celebrity. We all know what Lockhart does to get his fame. All right, and now if I can juggle these things, I've got some reading to do. We're going to start with Chamber of Secrets. So Harry's first photo op comes when he doesn't want it. He's at the bookstore. Gilderoy Lockhart is there signing copies of his biography, Magical Me, with his big smile. A short, irritable-looking man was dancing around taking photographs with a large black camera that emitted puffs of purple smoke with every blinding flash. Out of the way there, he snarled at Ron, moving back to get a better shot. This is for the Daily Prophet. Big deal, said Ron, rubbing his foot where the photographer had stepped on it. Gilderoy Lockhart heard him. He looked up. He saw Ron, and then he saw Harry. Then he leapt to his feet and positively shouted, "It can't be Harry Potter." The crowd parted, whispering excitedly. Lockhart dived forward, seized Harry's arm, and pulled him to the front. The crowd burst into applause. Harry's face burned as Lockhart shook his hand for the photographer, who was clicking away madly, wafting thick smoke over the Weasleys. "Nice big smile, Harry," said Lockhart through his own gleaming teeth. "Together, you and I are worth the front page." Harry begins to experience, almost as soon as he finds out he's famous, some of the downsides of fame, being forced into situations where the public pays attention to him when he would rather just be an anonymous 11-year-old getting ready to go to, I guess 12 years old in this book, getting ready to go back to school. And then, of course, his arch nemesis, Draco Malfoy, pops up and says, "Bet you loved that, didn't you, Potter?" said a voice Harry had no trouble recognizing. He straightened up and found himself face to face with Draco Malfoy, who was wearing his usual sneer. "Famous Harry Potter," said Malfoy, "can't even go into a bookshop without making the front page." Later, after Harry and Ron fly the Fort Anglia to Hogwarts, Gilderoy Lockhart corners him as he's getting ready to go into herbology class. "Gave you a taste for publicity, didn't I?" said Lockhart. "Gave you the bug. You got onto the front page of the paper with me, and you couldn't wait to do it again." And if you give me a minute to find the page, he's got more to say, though Harry certainly does not want his advice. "Harry, Harry, Harry," said Lockhart, reaching out and grasping his shoulder. "I understand. Natural to want a bit more once you've had that first taste. And I blame myself for giving you that, because it was bound to go to your head. But see here, young man, you can't start flying cars to try and get yourself noticed. Just calm down, all right? Plenty of time for all that when you're older. Yes, yes, I know what you're thinking. It's all right for him. He's an internationally famous wizard already. But when I was 12, I was just as much of a nobody as you are now. In fact, I'd say I was even more of a nobody. I mean, a few people have heard of you, haven't they? All that business with he who must not be named." He glanced at the lightning scar on Harry's forehead. I know. It's not quite as good as winning Witch Weekly's Most Charming Smile Award 5 times in a row, as I have. But it's a start, Harry. It's a start." Lockhart, who's motivated only for the desire for celebrity, cannot see any other motive. And later, when he comes across Colin Creevey trying to get Harry's photograph and then even asking Harry if Harry would sign it once he got it developed, says, "Who's giving out signed photos?" Harry started to speak, but he was cut short as Lockhart flung an arm around his shoulders and thundered jovially, "Shouldn't have asked. We meet again, Harry." Pinned to Lockhart's side and burning with humiliation, Harry saw Malfoy slide smirking back into the crowd. "Come on then, Mr. Creevey," said Lockhart, beaming at Colin. "A double portrait, can't do better than that, and we'll both sign it for you." So Colin takes the picture, and Lockhart disperses the rest of the group, and then he says, "A word to the wise, Harry," said Lockhart paternally as they entered the building through a side door. "I covered up for you back there with young Creevey. If he was photographing me too, your schoolmates won't think you're setting yourself up so much." Deaf to Harry's stammers, Lockhart swept him down a corridor lined with staring students and up a staircase. "Let me just say that handing out signed pictures at this stage of your career isn't sensible. Looks a tad big-headed, Harry, to be frank. There may well come a time when, like me, you'll need to keep a stack handy wherever you go. But," he gave a little chortle, "I don't think you're quite there yet." And they get to class, and Ron says, "You could have fried an egg on your face, you were so bad." Okay, celebrity and myth. Len E. Goodman, writing in Society in 2010, says that although celebrity may be manufactured, and we know that it's manufactured, it still carries a certain mystique. Goodman defines 3 stations that have to do with what celebrities pass through as they're on their way to becoming celebrities. Myth frames 3 stations for today's celebrities to pass through. Chapters in the story that people in the mass expect to witness. Discovery and rise, tragic fall, comeback, and redemption. But while Lockhart, whose memory is destroyed when the memory charm he tries to cast on Harry and Ron backfires because he's using Ron's damaged wand, is denied the comeback and redemption, the last we see of him is as a patient in the long-term care ward at St. Mungo's, where the only trace of his once famous self is his practice of signing photos now that he has relearned joined-up writing, you know. Harry moves through these 3 stations in each of the, well, I should say most. I haven't actually had time to go through and check each novel, but think about this, how things happen to him, where people laud him as the hero, then something happens where suddenly they are against him, and then he does something to remind people once again that, yeah, he is a good guy. And so then he gets the comeback and redemption as he's restored to his hero status. And I'd like to take a look at how this plays out in the first novel, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which of course is the Philosopher's Stone in the original UK version. So discovery and rise. We're introduced to Harry when Dumbledore, McGonagall, and Hagrid leave him on the doorstep at the Dursleys, as wizarding kind all over the place celebrates the downfall of Voldemort at Harry's home in Godric's Hollow. Professor McGonagall protests leaving Harry with the Dursleys. Quote, "You couldn't find two people less like us," end quote. But Dumbledore says firmly that the Dursleys' house is the best place for Harry. And we know, of course, now that he's got an ulterior motive for that. He knows that that ancient magic will be invoked as long as Harry is in a place where his mother's blood resides with his Aunt Petunia. But he also says, McGonagall says, well, everybody in our world will know his name. He'll be famous. We could find lots of families who would take him in. And Dumbledore says, exactly, looking very seriously over the top of his half-moon glasses. It would be enough to turn any boy's head. Famous before he can walk and talk. Famous for something he won't even remember. Can't you see how much better off he'll be growing up away from all that until he's ready to take it? I just want to read this. There he is, sleeping on the doorstep, waiting for his Aunt Petunia to come and discover him and scream when she finds him on the doorstep the next morning. Harry Potter rolled over inside his blankets without waking up. One small hand closed on the letter beside him and he slept on, not knowing he was special, not knowing he was famous, not knowing he would be woken in a few hours' time by Mrs. Dursley's scream as she opened the front door to put out the milk bottles, nor that he would spend the next few weeks being prodded and pinched by his cousin Dudley. He couldn't know that at this very moment, people meeting in secret all over the country were holding up their glasses and saying in hushed voices, "To Harry Potter, the boy who lived." So comes Harry's 11th birthday, and suddenly, after Mr. Dursley takes them on a fruitless attempt to escape all of the letters that keep coming to the house, Hagrid tracks them down. And he discovers that the Dursleys have not done what Dumbledore asked them to do. They have pretty much not told Harry anything. So he says, "But you must know about your mom and dad. I mean, they're famous. You're famous." "What?" And pardon me for the mom business. I'm quoting from the American version here, but of course they say mom. "What? My mom and dad weren't famous, were they?" "You don't know, you don't know." Hagrid ran his fingers through his hair, fixing Harry with a bewildered stare. And then when he finds out what the Dursleys have told Harry, "Car crash!" roared Hagrid, jumping up so angrily that the Dursleys scuttled back to their corner. "How could a car crash kill Lily and James Potter? It's an outrage, a scandal! Harry Potter not knowing his own story when every kid in our world knows his name." And then when they're sitting there talking and he's trying to explain to Harry all about his parents and all about what's happened to him, he says, "Never wondered how you got that mark on your forehead? That was no ordinary cut. That's what you get when a powerful evil curse touches you. Took care of your mom and dad and your house even, but it didn't work on you, and that's why you're famous, Harry. No one ever lived after he decided to kill them. No one except you." And then Harry says, "But what happened to sorry, I mean you know who?" "Good question, Harry. Disappeared, vanished, same night he tried to kill you. Makes you even more famous. That's the biggest mystery, see? He was getting more and more powerful, and why'd he go?" And then, I want to look this one up in the book, because it's worth quoting longer. Harry is a little bit freaked out by all this. Not quite sure that Hagrid is maybe telling him the truth, because he just doesn't think that he is cut out for great things, and how could he possibly have been the cause of Voldemort's downfall when he doesn't even really believe that he's a wizard yet himself. Hagrid looked at Harry with warmth and respect blazing in his eyes, but Harry, instead of feeling pleased and proud, felt quite sure there had been a horrible mistake. A wizard? Him? How could he possibly be? He'd spent his life being clouted by Dudley and bullied by Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon. If he was really a wizard, why hadn't they been turned into warty toads every time they tried to lock him in his cupboard? If he'd once defeated the greatest sorcerer in the world, how come Dudley had always been able to kick him around like a football? So they go to Hogwarts, and to Diagon Alley, And of course, they have to get there by going through the leaky cauldron. And things come to a standstill when Harry shows up. "Good Lord," said the bartender, peering at Harry. Can this be?" The leaky cauldron had suddenly gone completely still and silent. "Bless my soul," whispered the old bartender. "Harry Potter, what an honor." He hurried out from behind the bar, rushed toward Harry, and seized his hand, tears in his eyes. "Welcome back, Mr. Potter, welcome back." Harry didn't know what to say. Everyone was looking at him. The old woman with the pipe was puffing on it without realizing it had gone out. Hagrid was beaming. Then there was a great scraping of chairs, and the next moment Harry found himself shaking hands with everyone in the leaky cauldron. "Doris Crockford, Mr. Potter, can't believe I'm meeting you at last. So proud, Mr. Potter, I'm just so proud. Always wanted to shake your hand, I'm all of a flutter. Delighted, Mr. Potter, just can't tell you. Diggle's the name, Daedalus Diggle." "I've seen you before," said Harry, as Daedalus Diggle's top hat fell off in his excitement. "You bowed to me once in a shop." "He remembers," cried Daedalus Diggle, looking around at everybody. "Did you hear that? He remembers me." So again, Harry, before he's really even ready to be a wizard, is being confronted by all of these people knowing who he is and intruding on what should be just a simple rite of passage, going to get his school supplies. Okay. Next one, page. Sorry. The day ends. Harry has met Mr. Ollivander, gotten his wand, he's gotten his robes and run into Malfoy for the first time. Hagrid's bought him an owl, and now they're having dinner at the end of the day, right before Hagrid puts him back on the train to go back to Little Whinging. "You all right, Harry? You're very quiet," said Hagrid. Harry wasn't sure he could explain. He just had the best birthday of his life, and yet he chewed his hamburger trying to find the words. "Everyone thinks I'm special," he said at last. "All those people in the leaky cauldron, Professor Quirrell, Mr. Ollivander, but I don't know anything about magic at all. How can they expect great things? I'm famous, and I can't even remember what I'm famous for. I don't know what happened when the night my parents died." So he's grappling with things that maybe a 12-year-old, or 11-year-old, I guess, in this book, shouldn't be having to grapple with. Oops, sorry, stick on. Okay, so now comes the first day of school. He's at King's Cross Station. He can't find the platform 9 3/4. The Weasleys come along and help him get there, and then help him get his trunk on the train. "Hey, Mom, guess what? Guess who we just met on the train?" Harry leaned back quickly so they couldn't see him looking. "You know that black-haired boy who was near us in the station? Know who he is?" "Who?" "Harry Potter." Harry heard the little girl's voice. "Oh, Mom, can I go on the train and see him? Oh, please." "You've already seen him, Ginny, and the poor boy isn't something you goggle at in a zoo." "Is he really, Fred? How do you know?" "Asked him, saw his scar. It's really there, like lightning." "Poor dear, no wonder he was alone. I wondered. He was ever so polite when he asked how to get onto the platform." "Never mind that. Do you think he remembers what you-know-who looks like?" Their mother suddenly became very stern. "I forbid you to ask him, Fred. No, don't you dare," as though he needs reminding of that on his first day of school. So again, they're gawping at him rather than just meeting him like any other normal schoolboy, and rather than thinking of him really at this point as a person, they're more interested in the thing that has made him famous. So what has constructed his fame. Later on then, in the train, he and Ron are in the same compartment, and Ron just can't stand it. And he finally says, "Are you really Harry Potter?" Ron blurted out. Harry nodded. "Oh, well, I thought it might be one of Fred and George's jokes," said Ron. "And have you really got, you know?" He pointed at Harry's forehead. Harry pulled back his bangs to show the lightning scar. Ron stared. "So that's where you-know-who?" "Yes," said Harry, "but I can't remember it." "Nothing?" said Ron eagerly. "Well, I remember a lot of green light, but nothing else." "Wow," said Ron. He sat and stared at Harry for a few minutes. Then, as though he suddenly realized what he was doing, he looked quickly out of the window again. So again, gawking like he is a specimen in the zoo. And then along comes Hermione on the train. She's just rattled off all the stuff she's done to get ready for school. She's read all the books. She pretty much got them all memorized. She finally says, "I'm Hermione Granger, by the way. Who are you?" She said all this very fast. Harry looked at Ron and was relieved to see by his stunned face that he hadn't learned all the course books by heart either. "I'm Ron Weasley," Ron muttered. "Harry Potter," said Harry. "Are you really?" said Hermione. "I know all about you, of course. I got a few extra books for background reading. And you're in modern magical history and the rise and fall of the dark arts and great wizarding events of the 20th century. "Am I?" said Harry, feeling dazed. "Goodness, didn't you know? I'd have found out everything I could if it was me," said Hermione. I think I skipped a slide, so there's the slide. Now, in the books, this scene takes place on the train, and in the movie, it takes place once they get to Hogwarts. But Draco Malfoy, he of the sneer, comes up to Harry and notices who he's traveling with, and offers to introduce Harry to the right sort of people. And then Harry utters the line that we all love him for, "I think I can tell the wrong sort for myself, thanks." And thus is sealed the enmity between Harry and Draco that will take place pretty much for their entire time together until maybe finally book 7. And of course he makes some reference about, "I can introduce you to the right sort of people," and he looks at the Weasleys like, you know, whatever. But we, of course, know that the Weasleys and Hagrid are exactly the kind of people that Harry needs to meet, that they are worthy, that they're good people, and that Malfoy is definitely the wrong sort. We get to school, and Harry draws a lot of attention during the sorting ceremony. Let's see if I can get there. Professor McGonagall's been calling off the names. And then at last, Potter, Harry. As Harry stepped forward, whispers suddenly broke out like little hissing fires all over the hall. "Potter, did she say? The Harry Potter?" The last thing Harry saw before the hat dropped over his eyes was the hall full of people craning to get a good look at him. And then, of course, he goes through all of the negotiating with the sorting hat over which house he's going to be in. The next day is no better. He leaves Gryffindor Tower. He's trying to find his way around the school, and in addition to just not knowing where the heck he's going, he has to deal with all these people. There, look, where? Next to the tall kid with the red hair, wearing the glasses? Did you see his face? Did you see his scar? Whispers followed Harry from the moment he left his dormitory the next day. People lining up outside classrooms stood on tiptoe to get a look at him, or doubled back to pass him in the corridors again, staring. Harry wished they wouldn't, because he was trying to concentrate on finding his way to classes. So really, if we think about it, Dumbledore's attempts to keep Harry normal worked, although, as we all know, Dumbledore was not pleased with the way the Dursleys had treated him. It did keep Harry a thoroughly grounded young man who is really, quite frankly, flummoxed by all the attention he gets when he gets to school. They go to class. Professor Flitwick is so excited. He gave an excited squeak and toppled off the pile of books he was standing on. But then, of course, an entirely different reception waits for Harry when he gets to potions class. Snape, like Flitwick, started the class by taking the roll call. And like Flitwick, he paused at Harry's name. "Ah, yes," he said softly, "Harry Potter, our new celebrity." Then he asks Harry a series of questions that Harry doesn't know the answer to. And, oops, sorry, I thought I had made a slide for that. "Potter," said Snape suddenly, "what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?" "Powdered root of what? To an infusion of what?" Harry glanced at Ron, who looked as stumped as he did. Hermione's hand had shot into the air. "I don't know, sir," said Harry. Snape's lips curled into a sneer. "Tut, tut. Fame clearly isn't everything." Snape would put Harry on the bad side of the famous people, but we know better. Tragic fall, the middle part of the 3 phases that you have to go through. In the first book, of course, the tragic fall comes when Harry and Hermione are caught out of Gryffindor Tower at night. They've just taken Hagrid's baby dragon, Norbert, up to the tower where Charlie Weasley's friends will pick him up and take him to Romania and get him out of Hagrid's wooden hut. They get caught. Along with them, of course, Neville gets caught because he's coming to try to warn them that Malfoy is just trying to set them up and get them in trouble. And, of course, Professor McGonagall ends up taking away 150 house points from Gryffindor because of them being out of bed when they're not supposed to be. The next day, at first, Gryffindors passing the giant hourglasses that recorded the house points thought there had been a mistake. How could they suddenly have 150 points fewer than yesterday? And then the story started to spread. Harry Potter, the famous Harry Potter, their hero of 2 Quidditch matches, had lost them all those points. Him and a couple of other stupid first years. And he endures quite a bit of grief because of this. From being one of the most popular and admired people at the school, Harry was suddenly the most hated. This is just like the dress rehearsal for every year that comes after this. Even Ravenclaws and Hufflepuffs turned on him because everyone had been longing to see Slytherin lose the House Cup. Everywhere Harry went, people pointed and didn't trouble to lower their voices as they insulted him. Slytherins, on the other hand, clapped as he walked past them, whistling and cheering. "Thanks, Potter, we owe you one." And only Ron stood by him and said, "This too shall pass." And, you know, Fred and George have lost lots of points, and everybody still likes that. And Harry says, "They've never lost 150 points in one go, though, have they?" So, and Ron, of course, has no answer. Comeback and redemption. Of course, you know the story, and to make the long story short, Harry, with help from Ron and Hermione, manages to stop Quirrell and Voldemort from getting their hands on the Sorcerer's Stone. He's nearly killed in the process, but he does manage to stop it. The stone is destroyed. Quirrell is destroyed. Voldemort evaporates back into, you know, whatever vapor form he took. And Harry wakes up a couple of days later in the hospital wing with Dumbledore and a huge pile of candy from his friends. Dumbledore says, "Tokens from your friends and admirers. What happened down in the dungeons between you and Professor Quirrell is a complete secret, so naturally the whole school knows. When you're famous, everybody follows and everybody knows exactly what your business is. They think they know what it is." And then school year ends. They're on the Hogwarts Express to go back to London. People jostled them as they moved forward toward the gateway back to the Muggle world. Some of them called, "Bye, Harry. See you, Potter." "Still famous," said Ron, grinning at him. "Not where I'm going, I promise you," said Harry. So he's going back to the Dursleys, where he knows that he will definitely not be treated as the famous, favored celebrity there. So why Harry? Rowling catches a lot of flack from certain people that she picked such an average boy to be the hero. Why she didn't pick somebody a little more extraordinary, why it couldn't have been a girl, why it couldn't have been various and sundry other things. But Harry, of course, proves that he is anything but a basic white guy. Time and again, he shows himself to be pure of heart, selfless, thinking of others first. Sure, he goes through his angsty teen phase, but considering all that he goes through, he could have been a lot angrier and a lot more maladjusted than he turned out to be. That's kind of a miracle that probably would only happen in the literary world, right? In Rowling's books, the characters who seek fame prove to be the least honorable characters in the wizarding world. Gilderoy Lockhart, who steals other people's stories, erases their memories, and then publishes those stories as his own, ends up, in Dumbledore's words, impaled on his own sword when the memory charm backfires. He's known for erasing people's memories, and then he ends up erasing his own. And as I said before, he is denied his comeback and redemption that Harry does get. The characters who bear fame rather than seek it, who submit to the inconveniences and sometimes the downright injustices of fame, are the honorable, worthy characters in the Potter universe. Dumbledore and Harry are the two most notable. Dumbledore tells Harry, after yet another defeat of Voldemort, this time at the Ministry of Magic in the Order of Phoenix, why he is able to prevail over the most evil dark wizard every time. And he's talking about the prophecy and how Voldemort only heard part of it. And he says, "He did not know that you would have power the Dark Lord knows not." "But I don't," said Harry in a strangled voice. "I haven't any powers he hasn't got. I couldn't fight the way he did tonight. I can't possess people or kill them." "There is a room in the Department of Mysteries," interrupted Dumbledore, "that is kept locked at all times. It contains a force that is at once more wonderful and more terrible than death, than human intelligence, than forces of nature. It is also, perhaps, the most mysterious of the many subjects for study that reside there. It is the power held within that room that you possess in such quantities and which Voldemort has not at all. That power took you to save Sirius tonight. That power also saved you from possession by Voldemort, because he could not bear to reside in a body so full of the force he detests. In the end, it mattered not that you could not close your mind. It was your heart that saved you. Harry's pure, good heart. We see it again for ourselves in the Deathly Hallows, when Harry willingly goes to meet Voldemort in the Forbidden Forest, certain that he will have to die in order to render Voldemort vulnerable and mortal once again. This is the start of the long passage that is actually my favorite in all of the books. I won't read the whole thing, just this one paragraph. This is after he's seen Snape's memories, and so now he knows exactly what lies ahead of him. Terror washed over him as he lay on the floor, with that funeral drum pounding inside him. Would it hurt to die? All those times he had thought that it was about to happen and had escaped, he had never really thought of the thing itself. His will to live had always been so much stronger than his fear of death. Yet it did not occur to him now to try to escape, to outrun Voldemort. It was over. He knew it. And all that was left was the thing itself, dying. He never once thinks about trying not to do this, because he knows that only through this will his friends be saved, will everybody be able to live a safe and peaceful life. Not only that, but along the way, he takes every step he can to make sure that after he's dead, people will know what to do to defeat Voldemort. He even stops to tell Neville on his way to the Forbidden Forest, you've got to kill the snake, so that if something happens to Ron and Hermione, the snake will still be killed, and then the last thing that keeps Voldemort tethered to Earth will be gone, and he will be mortal. He lies to Neville on his way to the forest, because he knows that if he says something, Neville will try to stop him, and he knows that he has to go. He's filled with regret as he walks through the grounds to see all of the people who have been hurt and killed in this attempt to fight Voldemort.